Greetings from Boston. Welcome to Tennis Talk Daily. And we have some celebrating to do. You know, Roger Federer was so beautiful to watch last night. And as he progresses through the match, he gets into that rhythm. That Fed funk. It is funky stuff. And, you know, kind of getting into it a little in the first set. That first game of the second set, that was tough. But then the second game, Fed funk. It's that rhythm. He's a funky white boy. Yeah, but seriously, it was a very, very interesting match to watch. Welcome to Tennis Talk Daily. Subscribe to the channel to get the essential commentary and a couple of humorous episodes. I'm allowed to celebrate at this point, however, right? I'm allowed a little humor, a little celebration. We do have cause to celebrate. That was a very, very telling match, I believe, where, again, the Federer style of play sort of prevails over a different style on the one hand. The older generation prevails over the next gen on the other hand. We could talk about two basic stories. One is that, you know, Federer was kind of methodically applying pressure, playing forward in the court, taking the balls early, of course. He is the master at doing that, and working up a fair measure of consistency. Again, he got into that Federer funky rhythm as the match proceeded. And then the other story is the story of Chung sort of not playing very well. I do think the situational pressures get to Chung, and I don't think I'm pronouncing his name correctly either. But Chung's easy, right? Chung's one of the easiest tennis names I've ever encountered. But the first name, or the problem is we don't know if it's the first name or the second name. Drop a comment. Tell me how to do that if you guys know. Should I do the Chung first and then Yeon? And then, of course, I don't think it's Yeon. Possibly it is. I have a couple of South Korean friends. I should ask them. But he did, I think, struggle with some of the situational pressures. But was not certainly playing his full game. I do think that Federer sort of stumps him on a lot of stuff, takes him off balance with the early court play, the forward court play that Federer engages in. There's a lot of interesting ways to see that match. Federer himself was unshaven. He's just a nasty, he's just a tennis animal, a nasty tennis animal, a tennis demon, as one of the viewers was putting it. But he was looking, you know, very committed to this tournament. So the big question as we come into this new phase of the tournament is, of course, Federer versus Coric. What can we say about Coric? Something of an unknown quantity for you guys, and I wanted to make a couple of comments. I watched the Coric versus Anderson match again, and I've watched a couple of the other Coric matches, and the first thing I would need to say is that he needs to clean his nose out before he goes out and plays a professional tennis match. At the beginning of the second set, he had some interesting sort of hanging visitors coming down off of his nose. He had to take the towel and wipe it off on the towel, and then he kind of threw it at the person holding the towel. My gosh, the person must have been slimed to a very significant degree. But putting that aside, his forehands came alive. Listen, there's really nothing special to say about Coric. He is a very kind of a workhorse player. Obviously, takes from his countryman and idol Novak Djokovic in some significant ways. He's just a backcourt player. He doesn't really take the ball particularly early. He tends to play behind the baseline. He's just got very consistent ground strokes. I mean, you look at some of those scores from these earlier matches with Coric, and you'd think, wow, this guy is he's a devastating attacker or something. He's just overwhelming his opponents. Not really. We were talking about, you know, the idea of a player being a wall the other day. Each player has their own kind of wall that they can put up as a defensive matter. But Coric has a pretty solid wall. Now, of course, Federer has an even more impenetrable wall and a lot more variety in his play. I really do not see Coric giving Roger Federer a hard time. I think we might just see a very hard fall from Coric tomorrow in the semifinal match against Federer. I could be wrong. Maybe it'll go to 3 sets, but again, it's sort of a test. Listen, Federer just took out the Djokovic the Djokovic style player Chung, and Coric is going to bring more of that to the game tomorrow, to the match tomorrow, and Federer knows how to deal with that style of play in so many ways. There's so many ways, I think, to skin this cat. Coric is a very one-dimensional player, to be honest. A little surprising that he's gotten this far, but again, it speaks to this effectiveness of the homogeneous style of play, the homogeneous style of play that we see. I mean, it does work, and when you really do perfect it, but Coric does bring, of course, that young athleticism to the table, and Federer is an older guy, so it is certainly a clash of the generations. Once again, I mean, Federer's had to do this, he's had to deal with the sort of young blood, the young meat, a couple of times now, and Chung was a good test. Federer really had no significant problems with Chung, at least on that particular day in yesterday's match. But the Coric question is not, to me, a hugely significant one. Again, Coric has got the athleticism. He'll be able to run around the court a lot. He'll be able to go sort of toe-to-toe with Federer in the longer rallies. But in terms of the variety of play, there's just not much there. And I think that the Federer style, the Federer paradigm, the Federer shock and awe ultimately will probably get to Coric, and probably at an early point in the match. But he's got stamina. He could take this to 3. It could happen. Fed has been broken in this tournament, and all you need is one break, as the match with Anderson. I mean, if anything, the match with Anderson, he's going to reveal some cracks in the Coric kind of edifice, because he does have some beautiful scores, some very clean, devastating-looking scores coming into this semifinal, putting aside that Taylor Fritz match where he did drop a set. It was a close tiebreak set. But in the match with Anderson, that was close. They both were playing well, and that was not a clean victory for Coric at all. He basically just squeezed out of that. He got lucky because Kevin Anderson sort of botched the tiebreak in the deciding set. So I don't see big problems for Roger Federer versus Coric. Let me know what you think. Let's talk about this. Of course, we have Delpo versus Kohlschreiber coming up today, and folks have been saying that Kohlschreiber is going to give Juan Martín a real run for his money. I will be watching that, trying to do some tweeting. Go over to tweet, follow Tennis Talk Daily, and we will be doing quite a bit of that. Apologies to some people who did message me last night on Twitter with respect to the match, and I didn't get back to them this morning. I'll be trying to check on all fronts with respect to the messaging on Twitter. And so that's it. So exciting. I mean, when Roger Federer is flying this high, I'm so happy. My life is happy. I just am inspired and ready to watch, ready to see him soar to the top, soar to the defense of this title. I think he has a very good chance. Again, my prediction is Federer in 2. If it happens in 3, that's within the basic scope of the prediction. But I do think that I think they're playing in the afternoon tomorrow, earlier in the day. The colder air, I don't think, benefited Federer so much. It does slow the ball down, I was talking about in the Chung match. But the Coric match, if I'm not mistaken, is going to take place in the daytime. It'll be a little warmer. The air will be faster. and the balls might fluff up a little less. They were fluffing up quite a bit, in fact, yesterday, but you never know. That all kind of depends on the specific air humidity, but I do think that, artistry will prevail over basically brute athleticism tomorrow, and we'll be watching it closely. Comment, let's talk soon. Bye-bye.